Go out and vote, and we can create opportunities for them to get to know candidates and get involved in the political process. We have some in their bathrooms to be host sites for canvassing. And I want to introduce them to you so you know who they are and you know that you want to respond to them. One is Amy Rosalico, who I'm not sure is here yet. Okay. Linda. Okay. Linda makes us having so much fun finding Democrats in Weatherly Heights. And I will guarantee you that if you go to one of her events, you will have fun finding Democrats in Weatherly Heights too. She has actually recruited another person to host, Janelle, who is hosting. We have Whitney, a vocal call. Where's Whitney? Whitney is having so much fun finding Democrats up in the A&M area, and she is hosting an event that will be on campus, finding students and making sure they're registered and making sure they get out to vote. And Mary. Mary is over here. Mary actually hosted our first event in Jackson Way. And boy, did we find Democrats there. So I think, and Christy Buck in Church of Christ, right? Christy Buck was there. Clove Church. So we encourage you to be a host, come out and canvass at one of the events. Alice, who just stood up there to elect me, right, has been doing a real woman's job of putting all this together and providing training and helping us get this all coordinated. So if you want to be a host, if you want to come out and canvass, you have many, many opportunities between now and the end of December, and we'll be picking this up again next year. So we want to get our candidates in there.
No. Sign up afterwards. I sign up sheets for all the events.
Well, Alice has been taking over a corner here where you can sign up and get more information, and then all the candidates' information is also there. You'll also see in that corner if somebody could pull up that sign.
I'll let that sign.
No, the blue one. Thank you. Yeah. This is one of the most important yard signs that you can have. It says Madison County Democratic Women turning Madison blue, one vote at a time. Okay, we prefer to go by five votes at a time, but we'll stick with one. I've had this up in my yard, and I have a walking neighborhood, and people are stopping and taking pictures of the sign. I'm not sure where those pictures are going. I really need to Google my sign on the internet, but it's a very important way of getting our name out there and getting the work that we're doing out there. So if you would like a sign, please let me know. I have a lot of them in my car, and I need to go grocery shopping, so I need to get those out of my car. So please help me out. I'm going to turn this over to Pam Miles, and we'll get to know our candidates.
Justice for all. I want to welcome all you here to this most important forum. I cannot stress to you enough how important this special election is. It is extremely special, not because of the timing, but because of the difference that it will make in our country. This could make all the difference in our country if we have a Democrat back in this Senate seat. You know, it's been said many times that Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. Well, today we're going to call this candidate speed dating. We've got our timekeeper over here. Thank you, Miss Eleanor Burks. And when it's time for audience questions, would you please keep your questions to all Robert Kennedy Jr., and Charles Nana. For our first question, I would like for each candidate to come up independently and answer the following question. What single woman's issue is the most critical to you? Whoever wants to begin. Oh, okay.
Carried away, Pam.
I got carried away, Pam. First, the introductions of each candidate of themselves and a little bit about themselves so we'll know who we're voting for. Will Boyd, would you begin?
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, Democrats. Good to see you. Of course, I'm Will Boyd, running for United States Senate. I'm the pastor of a 158-year-old church in Florence, Alabama. I'm also someone quite involved with the community. I'm the chairman of the Lauderdale County Democratic Executive Committee. And with all the different hats that I wear, I'm most proud to be, as I jokingly say, but real serious, the husband to
Thank you for inviting me. I'm the Democratic Constable from Talladega County, and I have three main points that I want to do: the economy, and healthcare, and education. I want to grow Alabama's economy. I want to make sure that 100% of the people have healthcare coverage, and it's a suitable coverage. There's a couple of different ways we can go about this, and it's through progression too. And education is the building block of all. So I want to make sure that our state has a good education, because that's the fundamental in growing an economy. Thank you.
Jason Fisher.
Hi everyone, Jason Fisher from Orange Beach, Alabama. I have my headquarters in Mobile, so right across the bay. I got into this race to make a difference for typical Alabamians that face the challenges that I face every day. 5 years ago, my wife passed away unexpectedly, left me with caring for my daughter solo. At the time, 2 years old, she has special needs. She has a rare chromosomal abnormality, presents with cognitive challenges, and she has autism. And so I've had the poor fortune of spending a lot of time in hospitals and a lot of time with the healthcare system and a lot of time with the education system. She's now 8 years old. She's doing great. She's doing fantastic. But I decided I wanted to give back. I wanted to stop the rhetoric the way it's being done in Washington, D.C. right now, roll up my sleeves, and go to work for the people of Alabama.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Hansen. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. By day, I am the executive director of a nonprofit advocacy group by GASP. We work on clean air, climate change, and environmental justice. I got into this race in a similar way to Jason. I am running because I feel like Alabamians deserve a real choice for once. I'm running an unapologetically progressive platform. So I'm calling for single-payer health care. I'm calling for investment in clean renewable energy. I'm calling for decriminalizing marijuana and stopping for-profit prisons. I'm calling for a more just, fair, and sustainable future for all of our kids and grandkids, so that we don't have to keep seeing Alabama at the bottom of every list. So that's why I'm in this race. I'm asking for your vote on August 15th, and I look forward to getting to know y'all.
Doug Jones.
Hello folks, I'm Doug Jones. I'm a lawyer from Birmingham. I am one of the, if you check, I'm one of the folks on this stage who was born in Alabama and have lived in Alabama all my life, except 1 year. And that year was when I worked in Washington, D.C. for the late Senator Howell Heflin, who taught me what I needed to know. One of the things that Howell Heflin did, his last act, almost his last act, was in 1996, before he left office, was sending my name to President Bill Clinton to be the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, which served Huntsville, which served Marshall Space Flight Center and all the things up here. In that context, We prosecuted the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing cases and brought 2 old Klansmen to jail for murder of 4 little girls. And I can tell you, folks, that is the kind of passion that I will bring to the United States Senate. I have so many friends here. I know this group. I have been with you on every issue for a long time. We need to have a change agent right now. This can be a transformational race. It's not a race to just make a statement. It is a race that we can make a true difference with someone who has been there on the front lines for you for so long. I tell people, I am not running for the seat vacated by Jeff Sessions. I'm running for the seat vacated by Howell Heflin in 1996, and it has been vacant ever since. So please, vote for Doug Jones. Meet me all the 15th.
Next we have Robert Kennedy Jr.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Kennedy Jr., the Alabama mystery candidate with a famous name who is running for the Senate seat. Now, Doug and I have had a lot of fun with each other, and so I'm going to address that slight that he had towards me. So just so everybody knows, I left Alabama at 18. Let me tell you what I did. I went off to attend the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. I graduated with the class of 1992. I served on active duty for over 9 years. I was stationed in Japan and Singapore. I returned to the United States. I completed my obligated service. I started business school. On the day of business school at Duke University, I saw the woman who would become my future wife. And then September 11th happened. I volunteered, came back in the Navy a second time, and served my country again. And the reason why I did that is that we needed patriots who were willing to demonstrate courage and to personally put themselves at risk. When I graduated from Duke University with my MBA, I worked for 3 Fortune 500 companies, Harris Entertainment, Toys R Us, and Sears Holding Company. We talk a lot about brain drain. I'm here talking about brain gain. In 2011, my father passed away. I came back to Alabama. I'm here, I'm educated, I'm trained, I'm experienced, and I want to make Alabama better. I am the only candidate who is capable of winning the general election, and as the polls indicated, I was number 1 at 49% compared to the establishment candidate with 28. There is a reason that happened. And it has a whole heck of a lot more to do than just my name. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce Charles Nana.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Charles Nana. I come to you today as a candidate for U.S. Senate. A candidate who happens to be from a place 15 miles south of here called Cameroon. It's in West Africa, I'm just kidding. But a candidate who is a problem solver and also like to revive a divine tradition that teaches us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. I come to you today so that we can bring a fresh new wind of leadership, not only in Alabama, but to the United States as a whole. As you all know, the last 7 months under President Trump has been more than crazy, to say the least. We are in an unparalleled, uncharted area of incompetence, arrogance, meanness, and most of all, hate and fear-mongering. I come to you today so that we can look for a way in which not only we fight for the heart of our democracy, but we make a change in the state of Alabama. Thank you.
I want you to see our timekeeper here. She's going to be keeping our time for us. I'm going to start with the first question, and I think I'm going to start this way, go down, and then we'll rotate and start with Michael and rotate again until we run out of questions. And I'll have the first question, and then I want questions from the audience. So be thinking of your questions. The first question is, what single women's issue is the most critical to you?
For me, the most critical single women's issue is equal pay for equal work. I figured that would get some applause. This is actually really simple. I told you before, I served in the United States Navy. and men and women serve in the United States Navy and all of our military services together. Everyone gets paid the same thing. And the way that you ensure that that happens is you just add in an element of transparency, where all salaries have to be made public. You can cover the names and say who the individual is and protect their privacy, but you actually do that, and the problem will solve itself. Thank you.
Michael?
All right, no big shock here. I'm going to say it's choice, and here's why. Choice is all about a woman's autonomy and ability to make decisions for her own body, for her family. Choice is about economics, not just health. And so I believe that women have a right to determine their future, their family planning, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
For me, I believe it's equal pay, or I relate that to minimum pay. Because we should, as a rich nation, we should be able to offer our citizens at least $15 an hour. But unfortunately, women make about 78% per dollar that the man makes, and that is wrong. And that forces them to do 3 or 4 jobs just to keep a roof over their head, and that is absolutely wrong.
Folks, it's the wrong question. It doesn't really matter what my issue is for women. The question is, what is yours? It's yours, because I'm going to be the kind of candidate who's going to listen to you. Whether it's equal pay, whether it's women's reproductive rights, which I absolutely believe in the freedom. I am proud to tell you right here today, I have been endorsed by the three of the strongest women in the state of Alabama. State Representative Patricia Todd, Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and my hero Lily Ledbetter. So I can tell you, they're all important to me.
Thank you. To me, it's women's health. It's women's health in general. It's not just the questions and concepts of choice, it's also the healthcare system and how it's working for you. Because there are so many issues that are tied into the healthcare system itself, we have to solve that not just on a gender basis, but across the board. So ultimately, though, women's health has got to be the biggest thing.
I would say, well, it's hard to put that into one thing. I'd say it's three things equally into one, and that's the civil rights for women, equal pay, and of course health care and healthcare coverage and all the things that go with that. And of course, as your senator, I would be your voice and stand for your desire and your need. And thank you.
We have a president who thinks it's okay to grope women. We have a president who thinks it's all right to talk about women and put them down. I want to make sure every woman has a voice. And we need to understand health care is very important. Every woman needs essential health benefits not to be taken away by Republicans. So as your Democrat senator, I'm going to stand up and fight for every one of you to make sure your voice is heard.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, Greg Burns.
What will you do as U.S. Senator to clean up state government in Montgomery?
Did everybody hear the question? What will you do as Senator to clean up state government in Montgomery?
Good luck with that.
Michael?
I'm just going to be really honest. I have no idea where to begin. I've been working at GASP. We've been working in the North Birmingham community for the last 5 years. And if you've been paying attention to the news coming out of the area, a state representative was recently, he took a plea deal because he'd been taking money funneled through a coal company. And of course, we've got Bentley with his scandal and Hubbard and all of these corruption scandals that are affecting us, and we've got money controlling our politics. So we've got to start by electing better and different candidates in the first place. And I personally think we need more women in our elected office.
I think I have that in my platform. I think the very first thing is what I'll do as U.S. Senator, come up with a bill that will force every elected official who is caught in a lie to resign. We have a president of the United States who can't tell the truth, even if his life depended on it. We had a former governor who could tell the truth when his entire career depended on it. So we make sure we put a legislation. If you are caught in a lie, you must be forced to resign. Thank you.
You know, the bottom line is a United States Senator needs to lead by example. You got to provide true leadership. And if we can provide true leadership, if we can flip this Senate seat, we're going to have a transformational era in Alabama next year. And we can elect good Democrats. We can elect good people who want to serve the people. But it starts with this election. Starts with this election, and have a U.S. Senator who will use the position as a bully pulpit to take it to them every day and to call them out when they need to be called out. Thank you.
You're not supposed to do this in debates, but I'm going to agree 100% with Doug. That was a great answer. And I think I would add to this. I'm trying to run a positive, issues-oriented campaign. There's been a lot of mudslinging. You know, if you lead by example, you've got to be out there working with people, talking to people. I've driven all over the state, put 10,000 miles on my car, probably need a new set of tires. But I'm getting to know the folks at the grassroots level. I'm trying to understand what your concerns are. And what I keep hearing is too much corruption, too much power, too much narcissism that's going on in our government. So we need to control, and I agree with Doug. We need to elect somebody to this position that is positive, that can bring positive change to Washington, D.C., and that puts the pressure on the folks here in Montgomery.
Well, first, we need to take back the state government and make it democratic again. But as senator, what I can do physically would be to harness the FBI and the U.S. Marshals to physically clamp down on the corruption in Montgomery, to directly take power and put it down. And then, of course, you know, as we foster laws that keep people honest, that's very important. But those three things: first, we have to make it democratic again, and then secondly, as a U.S. Senator, use government power to actually force the corruption out, and then foster laws of better morality in terms of honesty and proficiency.
Two things: hold our leaders accountable and make them show up. Right now we have a problem that one of our elected officials in this area won't even show up for a debate. He's afraid he can't even hear the national anthem without some of us getting mad and getting upset. We ought to be louder. We ought to come from under the bed and fight like men and women. We ought to show what Democrats can do. We organize, recruit, and get involved. And we need to let this whole state know that we're tired of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches failing, and the media not even holding them accountable.
Sir, what we need to do is we need to elect a candidate who has no money and has no endorsements. The problem with this whole thing is the money, and we all know that. So imagine the message it sends to the political establishment when a candidate who's the physical manifestation of the dream, one who is anchored in honor, who's traveled around the state shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all this stuff, getting to know everyone, gets elected with no endorsements and no money. That will send a message much more powerful than anything else we could possibly do. Thank you.
I think the speed date is working pretty well. Does anybody else from the audience have a question? Yes. Judy.
I'd like for everyone to express their opinion on single-payer health insurance.
Not single payer. Repeat the question. Single payer. What's your opinion of single payer?
I think some of you didn't hear. Her question was, we should express an opinion on single-payer system. Well, as I mentioned before, I'm a strong believer of universal health care. But before I even get into that, one thing this great nation can learn from Jesus Christ. Jesus offered health care everywhere he went, and he never charged a leper as copay. Healthcare has to be, it's a right and not a privilege. So, and number two, we have to move away from healthcare, which is a common good and not a for-profit activity. Healthcare and education needs to be for common good and not for profit. So we should stop privatizing it. Thank you.
I think I'm like everybody. I'd love to see a single payer. I'd love to see universal health care coverage. I will tell you candidly, we're not there yet. We have to be a little bit more pragmatic. We had to stop things that's been going on in Washington. Senator Sanders had, when that was introduced as an amendment the other day, he had asked all his Democratic colleagues to vote present rather than getting on and trying to do that at that time. He's introducing a bill. It is going to be on the table. It needs to have serious discussion. But the main thing we got to do is we've got to stop Republicans from taking away Medicaid, taking away Medicare, and really stopping the train in Washington. And we do that with one vote at a time.
So once again, I agree. Doug happens to be on this side of me, and we're working this way with the answers. So, no, I think that's exactly right. The Affordable Care Act needs to be fixed and amended, and it can be done. It needs to have that attention first. We've got to fix the short term, then start to educate the public about the long-term single-payer benefits. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of misinformation out there that's been given over the years about what single payer is all about. It's been called socialized medicine. It's been called government-run healthcare. It's been demonized, and we need to re-educate the population and the public about what it means to get to a single-payer system. But in the immediate future, we can stabilize the Affordable Care Act and keep folks from losing their Medicaid, expand where we can.
Yes, we have to fight for the current law right now because it's under attack. And also, I would look to end any loopholes that prevent us from getting our fair share of healthcare money because we already are allotted $1 billion. I want to get that to the state. Single payer is something that it's a very good idea. We're not. It's a lot of battles before we get to there, but I believe that it can be done as long as we give people options to add to it. Say, for example, if they wanted extra insurance, they could get it. That way it gives people freedom and it would be easier to sell. But I think that, but yeah, that's what I would, first is we have to fight for what we got now. But yeah, in the future, that's very important, and I believe in 100% coverage, and it can be done. I'm working on my economic platform to be able to pay for whatever the American people want, and when we get to that time of single payer, we'll be ready.
While we were playing with the smoke and mirrors and all these things were being talked about in D.C. about Scaramucci and who this person is, that person is, President Trump has allowed $73 billion to be snatched from Social Security. $1.4 trillion is about to be snatched from Medicare and CHIP. SNAP is about to be cut by 25%. Meals on Wheels is about to be taken away. Yes, I'm for single-payer programs, and we need it. But let me tell you what happened with our Affordable Care Act. It was passed along party lines, which is bad, number one. Now your Republicans are saying our idea is to send it back to the states in the form of block grants. If our state has already refused to expand Medicaid, and we have 900,000 people in poverty, 124,000 women who are in poverty, and 94% of the area I just left has women in it who cannot afford health care and can't even put food on the table, how in the world do you think we can depend on the Republicans to help us again?
Christy, are you still over there? Okay. So when I was walking around meeting folks at the beginning, I had the opportunity to talk to Christy, and she told me about her daughter who has a prescription. One prescription costs $236-ish. So before we get to the point of having a conversation about whether or not we should transition into a single payer system, we have to be pragmatic, focus on the expense associated with healthcare now, have full transparency so we can figure out what it actually costs to produce medication and produce healthcare services, and through that transparency we can start to systematically reduce that cost over time. I told you, I am a different kind of candidate. And I know it gets cheers when everyone stands up and says we should be a single payer now, but we actually have to do the work, Democrats and Republicans together, to figure out exactly where we are now and have viable options to take care of us on a long-term basis. Thank you.
All right, so I appreciate my colleagues taking a more pragmatic approach, but I'm going to say we need single payer not just now, but yesterday. Imagine how much easier it would have been this whole time instead of fighting about tweaks to the Affordable Care Act, which was in a large way a big giveaway to insurance companies, if we had a single payer healthcare system that we all shared a part in and had skin in the game. So I support a single payer healthcare system. We're not going to be elected until December, whoever wins this race. So we're not getting into the Senate until 2018. So we can talk about single payer healthcare. I don't accept the premise that we're not there yet. We are there. We should be talking about it strongly and emphatically, and I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yes. I'd like to know how each candidate feels that they can get money out of politics. How can we
Getting money out of politics.
Campaign reform.
The question is getting the wrong money out of politics. The question is trying to reverse the Citizens United case. You know, we talked about raising money. I encourage everybody to get on the FEC and see who's contributed money to me. Our average is about $10, and we've raised a good bit from all over the country. So money comes from people like you. There are a lot of people in this room that are giving me money. And that's good because they want their voices heard. It's the big corporate entities, it's the Citizens United, it's the dark money that we've got to watch out for. We need to reverse Citizens United. That is the biggest step to try to get the dark money out of politics. That's the key.
If you want to talk about one vote makes a difference, think about the Supreme Court and where we stand right now. We've got the possibility of Justice Kennedy retiring in the next year. A swing vote. If we want the opportunity to overturn Citizens United and get a different perspective, we have to elect a senator that can confirm or deny the right Supreme Court justice. And that's absolutely key. And they're key to other issues as well. That is one thing. The second component, definitely with dark money versus individual contributions. So my campaign has been funded by nothing but individual contributions. I don't have any PAC money. I've taken no money from anyone other than just my individual family, friends, and the folks that have jumped on board the campaign as this grassroots train has moved.
Yes, we have to overturn Citizens United because I agree with what they had to say. It's not the money itself, it's where it's coming from, business entities and corporations. If individual people give, that's part of their voice, per se. But yeah, and also just monitoring making sure the laws are enforced to make sure that it's just there's no scams in the system. Because just make sure it's purely the people's money and says the people's voice instead of the big industries.
Step number one, overturn Citizens United. Number two, we quit allowing corporations to act like people. Number three, I hope we understand the importance of what's going on right now, even in politics. I know it's not good for the room. People don't like this, but we need term limits in place for some of these offices. And as your next United States Senator, I pledge here today I will serve 2 terms and I will come back home.
In order to address this, we need to elect a candidate who has no money and no endorsements. Now, I'm going to continue to have fun with Doug here. So, if you looked at his last campaign finance report, you would have seen that he had lots of donations that were max contributions. He also had a fair number of donations that came from political action committees. He stated before that he's not in favor of public financing of elections because he's the only one on the Democratic side who has the money. So of course he's not going to be in favor of it. As far as I'm concerned, if you looked at my numbers, and I'm really, really proud of them, most of my donations came from people who contributed less than $200. And that's what we need. We need those small money donations. I couldn't get max donations from anybody because I don't know anybody who makes that kind of money. So if we're ultimately going to do it, absolutely we need to overturn Citizens United. But when we send the message by electing candidates who don't have the money, that destroys the entire system as it exists right now and would do more to help us than anything else we could possibly do. Thank you.
All right, so going last this time is fun because I agree with everything everyone has said. We've got to, there's a group called Move to Amend. I support their initiative to overturn Citizens United, and I agree with Jason getting a Supreme Court a justice on the Supreme Court who shares our values in terms of getting money out of politics. Just like Robert, I too have no money and no endorsements. A little bit differently though, I've received donations from hundreds of individuals and they average about $37. And Doug, you're a good attorney, but you're not good at math. So I was just saying that's not a shot at you. There's no, even Bernie Sanders said 27, not $10. So we have got to get dark money out of politics. It's something I run into every single day working in the nonprofit advocacy world. And it is disgusting and it is undermining our entire democracy.
Well, I think I'll join the group of those who have no money, right? But I think I have three issues. Number one, Citizens United. It needs to be overturned. And that is important why we need to begin to identify judges that share our values to make sure that they are ready to be appointed to the Supreme Court when we have the next U.S. president. That is democratic. Very important. Then number two, we have to come up with a law that bans corporations from contributing to campaigns. Because the law now, a corporation is almost as an individual, and that is wrong. That is wrong. Third but not least, we also have to put a cap on the amount of donations candidates themselves give out to get endorsements from the local groups. Thank you.
I want to ask each of the candidates, have you ever been a Republican or have you ever been on the staff of an elected Republican official?
No and no.
No. One time I worked in the federal courts, but there was some Republican judges, but they wasn't elected.
I can say no and no also. My first job was as a House page in the South Carolina's House of Representatives, where I served the Democrat. Beyond that, I've actually served as a city councilman, and of course we didn't have to declare a party at that time. And it's obvious I'm the chairman of the Lauderdale County Democratic Executive Committee.
Well, you already know the answer to this. It's on my website. I was nominated for United States Naval Academy by Congressional Representative H.L. Sonny Callahan, who is a Republican for District 1 in Alabama. I was a political science major at the Naval Academy, and at the time I had the honor of volunteering to serve in his office. He knew I was a Democrat, and he and his chief of staff, Joe Bonner at the time, knew that. They still let me come in the office. They drove me all around while he was doing town hall meetings. And I got the absolute nicest note from Joe Bonner when he found out that I was running. I think this question illustrates one of the things we need to keep in mind. If we are going to win in Alabama, the general election, we have to be able to talk to folks across the aisle. We have to be able to convince independents and moderate Republicans, those moderate Republicans used to be conservative Democrats, in order to come back into the party and work with us together. So yes, absolutely, I volunteered in this office, and it was my honor to do so. Thank you.
I too can say no and no, but I did grow up with conservative Republican parents. And I'll just get personal here for a second. I happen to be openly gay. And growing up in the South, in a conservative Southern Baptist Republican home, is difficult. And I had to learn from a very young age how to come to terms with people who don't agree with me, and standing up to bullies, and all of that stuff that goes into growing up gay in the South. I will also say that some of my best friends are Republicans, and they are enthusiastic about this race, and they can't wait to run for me. And if it's not obvious, I have the most progressive platform, and we have Republicans coming out of the woodwork to support me. It's about tone, it's about values, it's about how you communicate with people, not about your party.
Well, mine is short. It's no, and I've never met a good Republican.
So, I served on the Alabama State Democratic Executive Committee. I've been a delegate to the Democratic conventions, and even a delegate to the mini convention in 1978. I've served on the party committee. I've been president of Young Democrats at Cumberland. I've been a Democrat all my life, and Robert's absolutely right. You got to have somebody who's going to talk to the Republicans. But folks, the last thing we need is somebody who's going to act like a Republican, and that's not what I'm going to do. So the answer to both of the questions for me, both the questions, is not no. Hell no.
Hope I can be loud enough. Several years ago, the mayor of Coleman called rural broadband access the new rural electrification program of the 20th century. And under the Obama administration, we were really moving forward with broadband access, affordable broadband. Now it appears that we're going back with the new FCC. And the United States has some of the worst internet connectivity and most expensive in the world. I heard on NPR this morning, even Rwanda has fiber laying in rural areas, right? As a senator, one of the most important things that you can do for Alabama, in my opinion, is to make broadband more accessible in rural areas for better health care, better schools. Do you agree with that, and how would you go about it?
Vann.
Yes, I agree with that. It's a fundamental democratic principle to foster these systems and infrastructures. The first thing is we'll vote for it in the Senate if it ever comes to vote, and also write laws and put that to a vote for the people. But then also, I would want to grow the economy where we can foster it, and of course, battle with the Republicans to make sure the money comes to Alabama and is spent properly to harness those things that you want. Yes.
We have 117,187 unemployed people in the state of Alabama. 27% of our workforce is underemployed. I'm putting out a job creation and job preservation bill that's actually going to not only put Alabama back to work, but our whole United States to work. Let me explain this about broadband. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce in Lauderdale County, and we determined that the main issue for us in our city and our county, believe it or not, is broadband. You all usually get excited and say, I'm just a preacher. When I get on the campaign trail and I start yelling and screaming and jumping on chairs, they all say, well, he ought to do that. He's a pastor, he's a bishop. But I get passionate about these things, and that is putting people to work. What do? We actually need to make sure that we have a jobs plan that we can use, that can put broadband in place, that will, like the electricity, obviously create grids where more people can work and more people can thrive. This is in my jobs plan already. Let me close saying, as a bishop, I've traveled the world. I've been in Rwanda. Yes, I have, many times. Many parts of Africa, okay? And believe it or not, they are further advanced in some areas than we are. So I lastly say I support even the Bill and Melinda Gates initiative that has allowed them to push for free internet access across the whole globe.
So I have to pick up on the sound like a Republican comment that was mentioned before. So I was in an NBCnews.com article, and and they actually interviewed Vivian Beckerly, who's the head of the Mobile County Democratic Party. And there was a quote from her that said, "The theory is that I was some sort of Republican plant that was thrown into the thing in order to hijack the election." So let's think about this strategically. You're going to pick an African-American young man from Pritchard, Alabama, put him into the race with no money and no endorsements as a plant. I'm telling you, the establishment is scared to death of this candidacy. They're scared because I'm actually connecting with voters. And when I go on a conservative radio talk show like I did this morning, and the guy is saying, "Why in the world would you even show up here?" Because I am running a general election campaign from day one. Doug talks about all of this commitment that he's done with the Democratic Party over the last 30 years. How's that worked out for you? When have we won statewide? If we do the same thing we've always done, we're going to get the same result. We are going to lose. We are here to win the general election. My name is Robert Kennedy Jr., and I'm running for United States Senate.
So the question was about broadband, right? I think this is a no-brainer. If we really want to transform our society and look back at 2016, it was really about an urban-rural divide, a cultural shift that's happening in our country. And if we really want to tackle that, we have got to show that we care about people who live outside of just big cities. And we can do that by investing in their communities, things like broadband, things like healthcare centers. We have got to do that, not just because we want their votes, but because it's the right thing to do. And so I fully support initiatives to bring broadband to the entire country, especially rural areas where people are struggling and out of jobs and looking for better pay. I think it's vitally important that we do that.
Thank you. I look at this more as investment in high tech. We need to attract high-tech jobs into the state of Alabama. But to attract high-tech jobs into the state, you need to invest in education. Alabama is the only state in the union that refuses to invest in public education. And what do? They build 3-4 state-of-the-art prisons, waiting for our children to make a mistake so they can lock them up and throw away the kids. That is wrong. So we need to attract high-tech jobs. Number 2, high-tech jobs pay 4 times more than low-tech jobs. So if we want to increase the standard of living, we need to attract high-tech jobs into the state. Last but not least, we also have to make sure that we take care of our children. Most schools in Alabama, about 85% of the schools in Alabama have a zero-tolerance policy, which means a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old makes a mistake, he gets tossed out of school. We have a United States president who screws up 501 times, and he's still being given chances. Is that fair? That is not fair. So we need to review it. Thank you.
Let me tell you, I've actually worked on broadband in Coleman County a few years ago when President Obama tried to expand that, and it is incredibly important. It is so important that we get broadband everywhere. There was a company right here in Huntsville that was trying to put broadband over power lines, and I went to the Coleman Co-op there, the electric co-op, to try to get, and we were working all over the country. And I started working with the Department of Agriculture. Unfortunately, the big telecom companies got hold of it, and they just squashed the little companies. That's where we've got to stop. We've got to start getting innovative business leaders across the state looking at broadband, get it into schools without cost. Everywhere in this state, everywhere in this country. It's an issue that I know a little bit about, worked on. I wish it had worked out, but you can't always fight those telecoms. But if you elect me, I promise you I will. Thank you.
We all having fun? So this is a question of economic fairness. It's a question of equality. Because, and this is a concept that escapes me as to why so many folks think that somebody has to lose in order for you to win. And that's not necessarily the case. I think we all do better when we work together. And when we have an infrastructure program that levels the playing field and allows broadband access to poorer communities or rural communities, we give those communities a chance to grow their businesses, to improve their small business opportunities. So I think we need to focus on that in our infrastructure plan, not just roads and bridges, those are important, but also the technology of tomorrow. How are we going to advance that so that we give everybody an equal playing field?
One more question, and this lady in the back here has been wanting to ask.
Well, I was wanting to understand how you would help to diffuse the rhetoric on gun control so we can get more responsible gun control legislation without taking people's right to bear arms away.
Will, you're okay.
All right.
Gun control.
You want to get a question?
I was wanting to know how you would diffuse the rhetoric that is out there right now on gun control issues so that we can get to responsible gun control legislation.
All right. The question is, how do you diffuse the rhetoric so that we can have responsible legislation regarding gun control without basically taking away guns? One of the Facebook ads that I have running right now is that I do not want to take away your guns. President Obama was accused of wanting to take away guns because he wanted to enforce laws that were on the books. All of us are Second Amendment people in our own rights. All of us support the amendments that are there, but we need to boldly say we just need to take the guns out of the hands of dangerous people. That's the way we approach the issue without actually making people get offended. No matter what we say, let me just be honest with you about Republicans. I'm just transparent. What you see is what you get. Republicans are going to always tell you if you do anything to touch the gun, change the gun, argue that the gun should not be given to someone, you are messing with their Second Amendment right. You can't win that fight. Just move beyond that and explain why we need sensible legislation. Number one, enforce the laws that are on the books.
I'm not going to make any comments about not having any money this time. So my campaign manager over here, Scott Hansen, raise your hand, Scott. Scott and I were on our way to the Tuscaloosa Young Democrats today, and we pulled out to a gas station along the side of the road, started having a conversation, he got my card, and then all of a sudden they realized that they had heard my voice, right? They didn't see my picture, but they'd heard my voice, and so they came around and we started talking, and the topic was on gun control. And so as we were going through it, I actually went into my wallet and I pulled out my concealed carry permit, and then a gentleman next to me just kind of lifted his thing and he showed me his firearm. That opened up the window for us to be able to have a conversation. Now these guys said, hey, we vote for Republican. We're not going to vote for you. But they were at least willing to have a conversation with me because I didn't come out the gate trying to demonize them. To use one of Doug's quotes, we need dialogue, not monologue, on this particular topic, and that's what will allow us to move forward. Thank you.
So I think in order for us to have a more productive dialogue, we've got to be honest. We have too many guns in this country. We have more guns than people. We're at a point in this country where we prioritize possessing a weapon over the lives of those who are killed by them. And, you know, it's not just gun violence in terms of homicide, it's suicide too. And so we need to invest in mental health programs. We need background checks that don't have loopholes in them. I'm not going to get into a long policy spiel about this, but Every Town for Gun Safety, that was a group that was formed after the Sandy Hook massacre, they have really, really good public policy proposals on their website, and I support every single one of them.
Thank you. When it comes to gun control, I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment. But the question is, how do we balance the Second Amendment with the other rights that we do have? Like right to worship, right? The people in South Carolina who were praying and they got gunned down, didn't they have a right to be there? You have students in Aurora, or those who were in the movie theater, or students who were at school and they were gunned down, didn't they have a right to be at that location? So the real debate should be the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, which one trumps which? Number two, there's a lot of hoopla around the debate. The issue is 33,000 people die every year from gun violence. But 2/3 of those are suicides. So the issue is, how do we protect people against themselves? If a kid cannot open a prescription medication, he should not be able to pull a trigger. It's just fundamentally simple. If I steal your gun, I should not be able to pull the trigger. We are the greatest nation on earth. We can use technology in our God to protect ourselves and make sure that the guns are up to date such that you don't have accidental discharge, and people who are not supposed or strong to have it should not have guns. Thank you.
Charles, red means stop. The question was, how do we diffuse the rhetoric? The first thing we do is we have an ongoing dialogue. We don't wait until we have a national tragedy to have this debate, because people take sides too quickly with a national tragedy. This has to be an ongoing dialogue. The kind of dialogue that you can have about enforcing the existing laws. I was a United States attorney. I know what it's about to enforce existing laws. We had a project called ICE, in which we put people in jail if they illegally had a gun that they weren't supposed to have. You enforce the laws. You provide additional money for the National Crime Background Check. The NICS system, which the NRA touts so much about, they talk about that in enforcing, but then they will stop any funding for that system. We've got to do that, and we've got to work to close the gun show loophole so that those people who are sitting with a table full of brand new guns have to do the same thing that Mark Sporting Goods does in Birmingham, and that's run background checks at every place there. The key is doing it on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
The first thing we can do to stop the ongoing terrible rhetoric is not to return a senator to Washington, D.C. that puts terrible ads on television. Send Big Luther packing, and that's a good step in the right direction. The second thing is we've got to have a different type of dialogue and get back to a non-heated debate on what is best for our country. How do we want our children to grow up? What kind of a society do we want them to grow up in? Where I drop my daughter off at school, I don't want to have to worry about picking her up early, late, or having a tragedy occur when I'm gone. You know, those are the types of things that are common sense issues. They're non-emotional. We just want what's best for our kids. So you start there. You start with the heart issues, and then you work out. The policy things, all these policy issues are terrific ideas. It'll take care of itself, trust me, over the course of the debate, but we've got to sit down and have a conversation about it like reasonable human beings.
Well, first, use equal protection of the laws to close the loopholes and enforce the current laws. But a good thing to do would be to create a Democratic gun lobby group, which would act as a counterbalance to the NRA and weaken Republican power. Thus, we can have more Democrats in power, steadfastly in power, and then we can shape laws that can bring these gun controls that we need, but yet maintain the rights of the people to own them.
Thank you so much to each of our candidates. I'm sure you will all agree, all 7 candidates are highly qualified, and we have some wonderful choices in this special election. I want to encourage all of you to turn out. Encourage your friends, your neighbors, your families to all turn out, not just for this, but for the runoff if we have one, and especially for the general election in December. Thank you all for coming out. I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thank you, everybody. You're free to stay and continue talking and ask the candidates questions. We have a membership table in the back. We have information about the candidates on the side, and we have some fabulous opportunities for canvassing and finding Democrats available right in that corner. If you have a class in Decatur at the Princess Theater, so please come to that and continue the dialogue, and we'll see you all in September. Oh! You know, I always have somebody who reminds me. In this room, in the blue buckets, we ask for your spare change and your $20 bills. They support our JFK Scholarship Fund and provide a scholarship to a high school student every year who's a Democrat. So please support that and support our candidates, and we'll see you in September.
I would like to say something. Hi, I'm Carol Lakin, and I would have a little cautionary tale. 2 weeks ago, I received some mail about I have my Medicare, and I have a Chrysler health insurance, and I got this mail, and they want you to go on to a Medicare Advantage plan. And I called my doctor. I said, I think this is nothing more than a thinly disguised plot to destroy Medicare because it takes money out of Medicare. And they certainly agreed with that. And so I had a choice. I could keep my Medicare, or I could get on these different Medicare Advantage plans. So I'm keeping my Medicare and my Chrysler insurance. And I just wanted to let you all know that that just takes money out of Medicare, and they would love to see it go.
Thank you, candidates.